Day 3 of the Qatar Goodwood Festival gets underway with a big-time handicap. It is the Coral Kinksem Handicap, named after the Hungarian mare who won, I think, 54 races on a run. As you would expect, it's a very, very competitive race on a very difficult track. The map shows us the twists, the turns, and the undulations, uphill, down dale, with a slightly uphill finish on ground that's sure to have plenty of give in it. That's the race map. Let's have a look at the race card. All sorts of informed horses. Killybegs Warrior heads the weights after a gutsy Newmarket success. Number 5, Perfuse. More on him in a moment. Bound to be very popular for Ryan Moore and Sir Michael Stout. Coverdale has been a winning machine of late. Also, we've got horses down the weights like Entrancement, who's in good nick, and a likely improver, number 15, Garden Route for the Haggis stable. That is the race card. Let's get into the form guide. Key guide here, perhaps, John Blance, as we bring you in. Killybegs Warrior and Obelix both ran really well in a very, very valuable handicap at Newmarket. Take us through this race, and of the pair, which one would you prefer?
Well, hello there, Graham. Hello to all of you out there. I prefer Killybegs Warrior. I thought this was a really good run, prominent throughout, lovely, big, strong, long striding individual, this horse. And when one or two of the closers came to really have a go at him in the latter part of the race, given the speed they'd gone throughout it, he'd have been well within his rights to curl up a little bit, but he found a good bit more in the latter stages. So I think he's going to go well in this particular spot. Haven't got him quite on top, but he's one that has to be considered for exotics.
A valuable clue, and I think so is this highly competitive London Gold Cup at Newbury a couple of months ago. Let's have a look at the video. Burrowing up the inside, an old favorite of mine, Have Secret, grows very well on soft ground. That will be valuable. Runs an excellent race, and in the yellow colors, white cap towards the outside, fading late but traveling nicely for a long way, Royal Rhyme.
Yeah, he's got some eye-catching pieces of soft ground form as Royal Rhyme, so he's definitely one to consider as well. And yeah, Have Secret's been terrific. He was slightly favoured by the way this race at Newbury was run, but then he came to Royal Ascot, ran a really good race there as well. Got a good draw here again on Thursday afternoon. So he has been, as I say, ultra consistent for Whirlpool viewers, and he can be so again.
Yeah, I think he'll run well too. Last but not least, by no means least, number 5 on the race card is a very well-bred Juddmonte horse. Ryan Moore rides for Sir Michael Stout. Perfuse. We're going to go back in time to a Nottingham minor event on deep ground. That's a valuable point to note here. Perfuse signals that he's improving fast, and he hasn't stood still in the meantime, John.
No, he certainly hasn't. That, as you say, the thing about him being proven on the ground here is very pertinent. But then what he's done subsequently, there was a tremendous performance at Doncaster, quickening up past other quickening rivals and winning very easily. I was really keen on him at Royal Ascot and the King George V Handicap, but even sitting in 5th in that race, or sitting just a little bit behind that, was too close to a really, really strong early gallop. The horses that got involved there, the sweet spot of the race was in a different part of Berkshire. They really closed off well. He ran really well to finish as near as he did to the action. I think he's very progressive. I think there's loads more to come. He's got a decent enough draw, and he's going to be my on-top selection.
And he handles soft ground. Let's deal with that on-top selection and the rest of the top 4 for race 1, John, please.
Yeah, well, I'm going to go with Perfuse on top. I just failed to win a few quid on him at Royal Ascot, so I'm going to try and go in again here. So that's horse number 5. 8, Have Secret, super consistent, well drawn again. Royal Rhyme, go through his form. His best efforts are on soft ground. And Killybegs Warrior in there for 4th, so 5, 8, 4 and 1.
Thank you for me, John. 5, Perfuse, looks a good horse waiting to happen. 8, Have Secret, is a warrior. He'll run well. 15, Garden Route, is more of a speculator, but he's open to plenty of improvement. And number 9, Coverdale, has been a real money spinner, and there's more to come from him. 5, 8, 15, and 9 in race 1 on day 3. Race 2 on day 3 of the Qatar Goodwood Festival is a 1,200-meter Group 2 race for juveniles, downhill track, soft ground. It is the Markel Richmond Stakes. Let's have a look at this sprint course. In theory, it's just a straight 1,200 meters. In practice, it's a test because they go quite sharply downhill into the dip, undulations all the way, and then a reasonably stiff finish, especially when the ground is on the soft side. Let's have a look at the runners and riders. It's a pretty good race, this. Number 1, Jaeger, already has a group race win, has a penalty for that. Asadna had a huge reputation early on in the season. He's on a retrieval mission. We've also got further down some key horses. Number 8, Sketch, very impressive first time out at Newbury. Number 9, Toca Madeira, travelled well in a good race at Newmarket last time. and perhaps the key horses in some ways. 10 unquestionable, high quality juvenile form, and 11 Van Dijk, very impressive on his debut. They are the runners and riders. Let's get straight into this good quality juvenile race. Let's deal with number 10, Unquestionable John. He is lightly raced, but he already has a level of form good enough to go close here based on an excellent performance the Railway Stakes at the Curragh last time.
Yeah, if you like your par speed figures, he's already produced a type of figure that's normally good enough to win this Richmond Stakes. He was also in the Vintage Stakes over 7 furlongs. Interesting that O'Brien has chosen to put him in here. Easy 4.5 length maiden winner on debut. This race against Buccaneer Fuerte was very good. It was actually slightly faster than the same distance race for older horses on that card. It was a listed race as well, so it wasn't a bad effort from those two at all. They were well clear of the rest. So on the proviso that Aidan O'Brien's chosen this race for this horse, I think he's going to be very close.
Yeah, I agree. And on ratings, this horse already has a BHA rating of 110, which is exactly on the number you need to go close in this. So unquestionably a big player here. Let's move on to the July Stakes. Often a good springboard to this Richmond Stakes. Jasor is the winner of this race. Interested in your view, John, because I thought Toca Madeira also ran really well. And I also thought the times, the splits in the middle of that race told you that this was a very cute ride by Jim Crowley, protecting Jasor from a pretty fierce mid-race pace and producing him at the perfect moment.
Yeah, it was absolutely beautiful judgment of the pace. And Jasor in its first race had been a little bit too keen, but settled much better this time round, and he needed to in this race. He made the point. It wasn't necessarily fast run completely throughout the entire race, but they really sped up in the middle part of it, and just staying out the teeth of that gallop was a good idea. Therefore, I'm not saying he's flattered, but I just think the race set up perfectly for him. Here at Goodwood is a different test. There's obviously the downhill part of the course early doors. So getting that far back this time round might not necessarily be ideal. He's in my numbers, but I think he might just be giving first run to Unquestionable here.
Yeah, I agree with most of that. And I do think that you should keep an eye on the horse who finished third in the July Stakes, Toca Madeira. He could be one to go well at a price here. Clive Cox, Jasor's trainer, has won this race a couple of times in recent years. He knows what's needed. Let's move on to Van Dijk. This is a bit of a speculator, a hard horse to assess. He cost a lot of money as a breeze-up horse. He went to Nottingham a couple of weeks ago with a big reputation, went off a short price, blew the start badly, but still managed to get the job done, John.
Yeah, and the first two are miles clear of the rest as well. So you've always got to take that into consideration. Surely will not start as badly this time around as he did at Nottingham. Maybe he will, and that will not help him here at Goodwood. But there was loads to like about that. I suppose the issue would be as well that maybe given his size and given his run style, he might want further in time. So there might all be happening rather quickly for him this time around. But he's very promising.
Sketch out the case for number 8 sketch, please.
Well, I just thought it was a lovely performance. I mean, he is another big, imposing type of 2-year-old. And on the front end, he was setting good sectionals to the point where if you're an experienced race reader, you're thinking about a furlong and a half to go, somebody's going to get him here. And he went further clear. And he absolutely he gave him a right old thrashing on debut. I think there's a lot more to come. He might obviously not, he'll have good horses taking him on for the pace this time round, but he's definitely a name for the future. I think he gets into the numbers for me.
Second, third, fourth, fifth, and sixth, like sketch for all newcomers in that Newbury race. But we have at least a couple who've already hit the level needed to win a Group 2 race. Okay, John, numbers for the Richmond Stakes, please.
Yeah, as you said, unquestionable. There's a lot to like about that form that he's so far produced. As I say, telling that Aidan O'Brien has chosen this race. I like Sketch in there as well. I'm going to get him to finish in second. Jasor will be doing probably his best work late. And then I'm going to put Azadna in there as well. Obviously, the Times boys and girls very excited after Rip, and he hasn't quite lived up to that. But there's still clearly an engine there, and he might go okay here.
10, 9, 1, and 11 for me. Unquestionable on top. I think 9, Toca Madeira, is the one who can add value at a big price. 1, Jasor, even with the penalty, and 11, Van Dijk in the Richmond. Some terrific horses have won the Gordon Stakes in recent years. It is race 3 on day 3 at the Qatar Goodwood Festival. The John Pierce, strong Hong Kong connection with the Pierce family. John Pierce Racing Gordon Stakes, Group 3. 1.5 miles, testing 1.5 miles with plenty of give in the ground, and a testing track for jockeys and for horses. Small field, slightly smaller than expected, but you still need to handle the track well if you're going to excel on the ups and downs of the Sussex Downs at Goodwood. That's the map. Here's the race card. Number 1, Artistic Star, represents the Derby form. Burdett Road has gone from strength to strength in handicaps of late. Canberra Legend was back on track last time. Chess Piece is a horse I really like. He's very honest and very progressive. Desert Hero in the Royal colours, got there late in a very strongly run handicap at Royal Ascot. And Espionage does duty for Ryan Moore and Aidan O'Brien after a good win on his reappearance. Small field, not quite as deep as we expected. Let's get straight into the form guide. This Chess Piece, number 4, John, is a horse I really like. He wasn't quite good enough over a mile 6 at Royal Ascot. The Glasgow Stakes at Hamilton provided a perfect opportunity for him, and he took it in super willing style.
Yeah, and we haven't really seen the best of him yet, Graham. I don't think we have. There's still potential for him to improve still further. We talked about some of his earlier form as well, which has worked out extremely well. The military order exoplanet form from earlier on in the season. Queen's Vase run, he was prominent in a fairly tactically run race, but he had the ability to be so, and obviously went on to run very well. And the Hamilton form, well, he was even money favourite that day, and he justified that price for the minimum of fuss. So with one or two big names not in this race now, I think he's definitely one that's going to be there or thereabouts.
Yeah, he's joint top rated, BHA numbers with 106. I think this race sets up very well for him. Let's move on to the Aidan O'Brien runner. Aidan had Adelaide River in the field. He goes with Espionage instead. This is a horse who ran second in a Group 1 at 2. Pretty plain Group 1 in France, to be honest. He came back at Roscommon. I thought it was a solid enough performance, Sean, without making me think he had real top quality potential. What did you make of this Roscommon win?
Yeah, well, they went very slow early on, so it wasn't necessarily a speed figure that you can put too much store by. But he did, after getting outpaced, then stayed on very well. So he clearly wants a trip, the kind of trip he'll get today. And it's interesting that, of course, his form or his level of form has not been tested with some of the 3-year-olds we've become very accustomed to here on the Whirlpool. So he's a slightly clean skin. He's unexposed, and we'll see how he goes here. Interesting, they took Adelaide River out too. So they may well have paid this horse a big compliment by leaving him in as the main selection.
I think he might have one or two limitations myself, but move on to Desert Hero. We're going to go way back here. It's not a flash race that he wins at Redcar, but it does show that he's very effective on soft ground. And since that Redcar win last season, disappointing run at Newbury, but right back on song with a storming late charge to win a race that was run at a molten gallop at Royal Ascot. Question is, John, is Desert Hero quite so good as he looked at the Royal Meeting?
Well, we haven't quite seen yet the evidence to say that he's a pattern race performer. You mentioned that Newbury run, and he was helped by the way that race was run at Ascot. It was a beautiful ride from Tom Marquand. He knew exactly that the leaders were going far too quickly there, weaved through, slalom through beautifully like a downhill skier, and got to the end. And of course, all the fuss was about the King's winner, etc., etc. I've yet to be convinced that he's a pattern horse. He might be, and we'll find out probably on Thursday afternoon. But for me, I've left him out in a tricky little race, but he's clearly a very interesting contender.
Okay, we've seen half the field. We should be able to sort this out between us. First 4, please, John.
Yeah, I'm going to go with Espionage on top. I'm going to give him the chance to prove he know yet, but I think he probably is, given what we saw in that race in Roscommon and from his 2-year-old career. Artistic Star was 7th in the Derby. The run before that was very good as well, in beating a horse called Torito, who's then gone on to frank the form very nicely. I think he could be a pattern horse in the making. Then I've got Chess Piece in there for 3rd, and Burdett Road is way behind on official ratings, but the way that horse won at Royal Ascot in a very competitive handicap, was very wide throughout, had to make a big move to get to the front. Looked like he's got a horse who's got loads of improvement to come, so I've sneaked him in on a minor line.
One of my main bets on Thursday will be number 4, Chess Piece in the Gordon Stakes. He's on top. 6, Espionage, 1, Artistic Star, and 5, Desert Hero. One of the great European fillies races is race 4 on day 3 at the Qatar Goodwood Festival. It is the Qatar Nassau Stakes. It's a small field, but it's very select. It's 2,000 meters, plenty of giving the ground. No great challenges for one or two of these who've been here before. When we have a look at the race card, you'll see that number 3, Nashwa, sets the bar, and she sets it high. Last year's winner of this race, and she was impressive. Above the curve, number 1 has a solid place chance, and it's great to have a high-quality French raider. The French dual classic winner, number 4, Blue Rose Sen. Carnarvon, a never-ending story, round out the sextet. Let's get straight into the galloping clues, and 2 of them. 2 for the price of 1. Number 3, Nashwa. Take us back 12 months, John. This race, last to first, under Holly Doyle. Nashwa was terrific on this day.
Yeah, she certainly was, given the way the race was run as well. She had to knock out some pretty impressive sectionals as she turned for home to get herself into a position to actually go on and then take the race out. So it was a very nice performance. And she's had one or two little issues this season. We'll come to those later. But I think she's primed for this. They've obviously had this race in the calendar for a while, and she'll go very, very well.
Let's move on from this day last year to Newmarket a couple of weeks ago. The ground had got plenty soft. This was a mile. The foul was the stakes. The key to Nashua is smooth sailing. When she settles under restraint, she's a terrific filly. When she pulls on the front end, she's vulnerable. In the Falmouth, she settled beautifully under Holly Doyle. She made her way through the field and she powered clear late on. Won a Group 1 race, galloping the others bow-legged. We know she's bang on form now. If she settles, she sets the bar very high indeed. But let's deal with a couple more and let's verbalise the French Raider. There's been a bit of a French revival at the top level this season. A Blue Rose Saint John has been at the forefront with 2 excellent Group 1 wins at a mile and a mile and a quarter.
Yeah, representing the wonderful racing dynasty, of course, of Christopher Head and the rest of the family. 7 wins from 9, 3 from 3 this season. Winner of the French 1,000 Guineas and the French Oaks as well. She's actually had a nice run in transit each time in terms of the draw, but in terms of the pace setup, she's had quite strong gallops to set, and she's found plenty when required. So it's a really terrific clash it sets up with the older filly Nashua.
In short, do you think she can beat the favourite or Nashua here?
I think it's very, very marginal. I'm going to go with Blue Rose Sen, but it's only marginal. But I think she really likes the ground as well, the French filly too. But I anticipate a really terrific contest.
A couple more to mention here, and we've got Above the Curve on video. In the Pretty Polly Stakes, this was a somewhat messy race. She got a bang late on. The form book here and the ratings suggest she has a bit to find with Blue Rose Sen and in particular Nashua, but she's likely to get her own way in front, John. And when she does that, with giving the ground, she's a good filly, and she ties in very closely with Nashua on a couple of bits of form.
She does, and as you said, she likes the ground. She's a 2-time Group 2 winner. She's been a little bit unlucky in 1 or 2 starts, most notably in the Breeders' Cup Filly and Mare Turf in America. She got knocked around there. She did well to finish 7th. So she's a legitimate contender. I wouldn't totally rule her out, and she's definitely got to be considered for exotics.
Al Hussein is the next one we're going to look at. She's an improver, no question about it. At Ayr, a couple of starts ago, it was only a listed race. She had to work reasonably hard. Then she went on to Newcastle and she beat Nashua, but that was one of the days when Nashua was too fresh and too fiery on the front end. Very straightforward question. Is Al Hussein, John, good enough to go close at Group 1 level?
No, because I think what you said about Nashua building up to the performance at the Falmouth last time out is probably correct. She wasn't very good in her first race either, Nashua. She's been a work in progress this season. I think Al Hussein caught her on a good day. It was a good effort in its own right, but I still think she's got more to do to prove she's a Group 1 filly.
Rightly or wrongly, I'm clear where I want to go in the Nassau this year. 3 Nashua, 4 Blue Rose Sen, 1 Above the Curve, and 2 Al Hussein. I think you're going for the French filly instead, John.
Yeah, but not with a huge amount of confidence. I'm just anticipating a great race. I'm going to go with Blue Rose Sen on top with Nashua in for second. Above the Curve in for third. Filly I've liked for quite some time. And Carnarvon has run really well in 1 or 2 big races. She probably had the run of the race in the Oaks when she ran well at the big price. But if she sits off what could be a reasonable gallop here, actually, she might be able to pick up a few pieces.
Move on to race 5, day 3 at Goodwood. It is the Jaeger Cultura Nursery Handicap, 1,400 metres for 2-year-olds. It's an unusual test, this. It's twisting, it's turning, it's very, very soon into a sharp downhill right-hand turn, and then a fairly stiff finish when the rain has fallen, and it has. Let's move from the map to the race card. Michael Owen is one of the owners of number 1 Ballon d'Or. Will he stay the trip? Mission to Moon number 3 is progressing quite nicely. Further down the field, number 6 Gamran, definitely ready for a return to this trip. Lincoln Legacy is progressing nicely. Makamudo is speedy, quirky, blinkers first time, and the most interesting filly of all, perhaps. Keep a close eye on number 12 Gray's Inn, proven soft ground form, and the handicapper would have given this filly much more weight to carry if he could set the weights again. Let's get straight into Gray's Inn. John, this is perhaps one of the best handicapped horses running at Goodwood this week. She's proven on soft ground. She showed that at Chester 2 starts ago. It was softish ground again in a listed race at Sandown last week, and she ran an excellent race.
Yeah, first two well clear of that the red in that Chester race, and yeah, it was a good run at Sandown, as you say. £17 well in, if you believe the official handicapper. The slight doubt is the draw. Stall number 9 could be a little bit tricky to get a good position from there, around the 7 furlongs where they come up to that bend quickly. The situation as far as the handicap is concerned is very eye-catching.
It is. I think she's got a tremendous chance here. Thorhammer Hansen is the rider. For rookie trainer Jack Channon, they have a very well handicapped filly on their hands. But there are others to consider here. And number 7, Lincoln Legacy, has only had 2 runs. William Buick does the business for Charlie Johnson. And this is a horse who's open to more improvement, I think.
Yeah, definitely. The run that we'll see here on the all-weather was pretty good, really, on all known metrics. And I think on only start 3 from stall 4, I think there shouldn't be any problems with the ground. Looks like a big, long-striding type should be fine as far as that's concerned. So, yeah, I think there's a lot of pace in this race. So Buick will have to get this horse out and not be too far forward, but just make sure just off the back of the speed.
This is a biggish field, but I think we've tried to boil it down to a small but select handful. What are your numbers, John, for this nursery handicap?
Yep, going to go with Grays in the 12 on top. The Lincoln Legacy horse number 7 as well. Ballon d'Or's got top weight and a tricky draw, but has got form around some pretty good pattern race horses. So I'm going to shove him in as well. And Count Palatine, I need to have one closer in this race because there's loads of speed horses, and Count Palatine will come from the back, hopefully, and pick up a few pieces.
Fascinating to see what price Grays in is. I think she deserves to be a short price, not just on her last run. The one before is strong. Firmly on top for me, number 12, Grays in, 7, Lincoln Legacy, 6, Gamran, definitely ready for a return to 7 furlongs, and 9, Macanudo, quirky, but the headgear for the first time might make him interesting. 12, 7, 6, and 9 in the nursery. Race 6, day 3 at Goodwood, is over a mile, 1,600 metres, a 3-year-old handicap, and 1,600 metres at Goodwood is tricky. Let's have a look at the map. It is uphill for the most part for the first half of the race. Sharp downhill right-handed turn leading to pretty long straight and a stiffish finish when the ground is on the soft side, which it will be. That is the map. Let's have a look at the race card. Number 1, Glenfinnan, brings a big weight, but also some persuasive form claims. Sky Sail is in good nick. Number 4, Isle of Jura, more on him. He has been going gangbusters recently. Further down the card, Seagull off the track for 9 months, but open to improvement. Novus declared on Tuesday, may well run twice in the week. And further down the card, we have the likes of Naval Academy, who is bringing some French form to the table. Let's have a look at a key galloping clue, John. We've got more than one potential handicap blot on Thursday's card. Grays in the nursery race 5, race 6. Here comes Isle of Jura. 150 grand purchase from Godolphin, now with Newmarket trainer George Scott. Bolted up 2 starts ago at Newbury and did exactly the same thing from a £12 higher mark at Newmarket last weekend. A £6 penalty. Have a look at the video. This still has to be a well-handicapped horse, surely, John Blance.
Yeah, I think he is. And I think he's got to go into the numbers somewhere. There's a slight question mark about whether he can produce this sort of performance on a much softer surface, which it may well be come Thursday afternoon. But again, he's a very well handicapped performer, and everything to like about those 2 runs. He's just the curve is an upward one, and it's a rapidly rising one at that.
Yeah, they were both good ground wins. If he handles the ground, major player. I want to talk about the top weight, number 1, Glenfinnan, Asheen Murphy, Andrew Balding. Horse who ran well in some pretty handy races last year. And he came back with a solid 4th at Newmarket. Plenty to like about this horse, despite the big weight, I think.
Yeah, some of the form from last year has aged pretty well, especially that run at Yarmouth around Masai Mara. And this actual run on his debut this campaign, in terms of speed figures, was his best one so far. So although he was beaten reasonably comfortably, it was probably a good performance. And I would have thought a nice springboard to this.
Yeah, Hood for the first time last time. They don't go with the Hood this time. They clearly think he doesn't need it. I want to talk about Seagull, number 6. Tom Marquand for William Haggis, stall 13. Horse who's been off the track for a long time. The race he won at Chelmsford last autumn had no depth, but he won it with authority, John.
He certainly did. Sometimes at Chelmsford in October, you get some good horses turning up. Maybe not quite so in this particular race. It was only a Class 5, but he did it in very good fashion. He's a really big type of horse as well. He stayed on strongly down the centre of the track. I think he might need a little bit further in time, so that's my slight concern about him. And obviously, first run for such a long time.
Big field, draw, looking running could be important here. What's your first 4, John?
Well, I'm going to go with a horse called Sky Sail here, who's got some good Goodwood form already, good soft ground form too, ran well at Ascot last time out, is drawn nicely. You do probably need an inside draw when you come to that bend relatively early over a mile. So that one goes in. Novus is down to run this week as well. She might well turn up here. She looks like a well-handicapped horse, actually, wherever she goes. She goes in there for second because she's got stall 1 as well, horse number 7. Isle of Jura for the reasons discussed in third. A Metal Merchant ran pretty well 2 starts ago on soft ground. I think could do so again here at a price, though not very well drawn.
Keep an eye on the ground for all of these horses, but Isle of Jura has been progressing at a rate of knots. I have to go with him again, given that he's well treated. 4 Isle of Jura, 1 Glenfinnan, 6 the Sea Eagle, and 19 Can in the Rain. Let's hope we aren't doing a Can in the Rain on Thursday. That's the wrap up for race 6. Let's move on to race 7, 7 of 8 on day 3 at the Qatar Goodwood Festival. It is the 1400 metre 2-year-olds, Tatler, British EBF Maiden Filly Stakes, and so little form to go on, John. The track is difficult for inexperienced horses, but the easy ground is going to bring stamina into play. Right-hand turn, sharp downhill descent, and then uphill at the finish. There's the map. Let's have a look at these unexposed fillies. Number 2, Classical Song, has a hefty price tag, and I think Rafe Beckett may well have booked Ryan Moore for this filly. Further down the card, we've got a few horses who've already run with promise. Number 9, Get Jiggy With It, showed plenty at Newmarket, and likewise, first time at Newmarket, Ornelia showed plenty to enthuse over for the future. So that is the race card. Let's get into a couple of key galloping clues, John. 2 horses who ran really well first time out at Newmarket. First of all, Get Jiggy With It. She came from off the pace. She was strong at the finish. How good might she be?
I think she's got plenty of potential, quite slowly away as well in a race where they didn't go an absolutely breakneck gallop either. So she's churned out some pretty good late sectionals. So again, she's the type of horse, if she can get out the gates a bit quicker, she's got every chance of producing an even better performance than that which she did on debut.
Yeah, it was dead ground as well, so she handled a good to soft ground. She may well handle similar conditions here. Let's move on to filly with a similar profile. It's number 10, Ornelia, for Kevin Stott and Dominic French Davis. 260 grand by Night of Thunder, caught flat-footed, then stayed on strongly. Interesting, John, this filly does have the big entries in the Flash Group races.
Yeah, and Sacred Angel, who won this race, of course, won the Princess Margaret Stakes at Ascot the weekend. So that's a very strong form line. Obviously, Ornelia wasn't quite up to that level. But again, a bit like Get Jiggy With It, she was a bit awkward out the gates and did her best work towards the latter part of the race. So with that form line in mind, the Princess Margaret form line in mind, she's going to go on top for me.
Yeah, a quick word about a couple of unraced horses. Classical Song, Rafe Beckett, Lope de Vega filly, who costs plenty at the Breeze Ups. She's one to keep an eye on. And for Murphy and Balding, Sheen and Andrew, Imperial Express as a hood for her debut. This is a difficult one, John. I don't think either of us can be maximum confidence here, but give me your first 4 for the maiden.
Yeah, I'm going to go with 10 Ornelia on top with Get Jiggy With It, the 5 in for second. 2 bits of pretty solid proven form, not world-beating form, but pretty solid. And then Gassiar and Imperial Express, both of whom cost a few quid. Imperial Express, as you mentioned, a lot. And they're both by this relatively new sire, Inns of Course, who seems to be doing quite well in the early stage of his career in that field. So those 2 in there for 3rd and 4th.
Yeah, I've mixed it up between proven form and potential of unraced horses here. I'm going 10 Ornelia, like John, quite impressed by that debut. 2 Classical Song, 5 Get Jiggy With It, and 7 Imperial Express. To confirm, 10, 2, 5, 7 in the maiden. The last of 8 races at Goodwood on day 3 this year is the Whirlpool Handicap. It's straightforward, a brazen test of speed, downhill for the first 60% of the race. Plenty of action towards the stands rail, I suspect. Plenty of giving the ground. That is the race map. The race card tells us this is going to be a difficult puzzle. 2, Democracy Dilemma, is in great form. Likewise, 3, JM Jungle, and 4, Thundermore. Further down the card, loads of speed from number 10, Holcomb Bay. Desperate Hero is in great form. And Estate won last time out. That is the race card, the runners and riders. Key galloping clues here. A race at Haydock we're going to look at first, John Blance. Gem Jungle and Desperate Hero, both in this race. Gem Jungle quickens up well. Not only does he quicken up well, Mr. Blance, he tries to take a nibble out of the runner-up near the line.
Well, we've seen that before with Chindit as well, haven't we? But I like JM Jungle. I've got written down here, tough, consistent and fast. He travelled really strongly in that race that we saw. And he also ran really well in that 3-year-old dash at Epsom back in the earlier stages of the Whirlpool. And Epsom is pretty similar to Goodwood in terms of the test it provides for sprinters. JM Jungle, I expect to get into a lovely position. Still looks quite well handicapped to me as well. And I think it's going to be there or thereabouts. Certainly a very good bet.
Yeah, that's a key clue, I think. It really is. Let's move on to the next galloping clue. You'd love to own a horse like Democracy Dilemma, John. Number 2 on the race card for Holly Doyle and David Evans. High draw, lots of speed, proven on soft ground. And on the artificial surface at Chelmsford last time, he recorded a PB.
He certainly did. David Evans doesn't wrap them up with in cotton wool. He certainly lets them go and gives them plenty of races. And this horse has been very, very consistent, whatever the surface. And last time out with Holly Doyle aboard, gave him a bit of a pasting on the all-weather. And Holly Doyle's booked again. So I think that tells you all you need to know. High draw, as you say as well, definitely in the numbers.
So that's Democracy Dilemma for bags of speed on the all-weather. Time to try and solve this concluding puzzle on day 3 for the Whirlpool handicap, John. It's a hot sprint, and we've got some really likeable horses on day.
Yeah, we certainly have. No dilemma for me, though. JM Jungle, I think he's going to be absolutely ideally suited to this test just off the back of the speed. Thundermoor, the 4 in for second, improved greatly for soft ground last time out. That could be key. Democracy Dilemma in there for third. And Rocket Rodney was second, of course, in the Molecombe last year. And I think he's got every chance. He's not the horse maybe he was, but he might be able to return to something like his best here at Goodwood.
Yeah, we're of similar mind on the top 2 here. JM Jungle is just a really handy, progressive horse. Jason Hart for John Quinn. Number 3 is on top for me. From number 4, Thundermoor, he and number 11, Desperate Hero, are both ahead of the game, having run really well in a similar race at Yarmouth last week. Turned out quickly in great nick. And 10, Holcombe Bay, is the last one I want to mention. He is in deeper than before, but he showed tremendous speed at Doncaster until worn down late. So 3, JM Jungle. 4, Thundermoor, 11, Desperate Hero, and 10, Holcombe Bay in a very complex finale at Goodwood on day 3.